All right. And thank you, everyone, for joining us for today's Facebook Fundraising Bootcamp. My name is Adam. If we haven't met before, I am part of the marketing team here at Good United. And as we have people filing in, what we're going to do real quick, if you don't mind, I'm curious to see, y'all probably saw a handful of emails come from me directly once you signed up over the last couple of weeks. Recommending getting giving tools on. I've had a lot of organizations reach out and say, hey, Adam, we've had it turned off abruptly and been working to get that on. I'm curious to start things off before I get Colin and Molly brought in and we get going through today's agenda. How many of y'all actually have giving tools turned on currently? We use this cool little tool called Menti. If you can scan that QR code if you're on your mobile device to vote, or you can go to menti.com and type in the code 33985833. That's 33985833. And go ahead and cast a vote. It's actually going to show in real time. So far, everyone here is going. Nicole and Lisa, I see you in the comments. No, that's all right. Today's still going to be incredibly valuable. And for everyone else who doesn't have it turned on or does have it turned off currently and had it on previously, everything here is going to be on demand. So once you get that turned on or get it re-enabled, whichever your boat you're in, this is going to be here for you to access. Colin and Molly are going to do a great job kind of outlining the high-level information. I'm going to let this go on for a few more seconds as we let everyone file in. And before we get officially running, again, my name is Adam. If you're just joining, thank you so much for joining us for the Facebook Fundraising Bootcamp. This has been a really fun one to put together. It's the first that we've ever done where we just said, hey, there's a lot of people asking, a lot of nonprofits specifically asking, we may have been involved with Facebook fundraising for a while or even brand new to it. And there's still a lot of things that just need to be explored and understood and maybe dove into a little bit more effectively. We're going to take the next 55 to 57 minutes and try and do that. We have a lot of slides, a lot of topics. What we'll promise we'll do our best to stay on par. At the very end, we're going to touch on some of the benchmarks that we were able to take from Good United customers, actually. Did some anonymization of the data and kind of show you, hey, here's where things are in 2023. The big comments are always, hey, Facebook fundraising is going down. You may have seen the MNR report, the benchmarks report that did denote that, hey, giving as a whole, individual giving is going down. And if Facebook makes such a small percentage, I believe it's 1% of total giving that was accounted for across the 200 and some odd organizations that MNR worked with for last year's data set. And there's no denying it. There is. I'll have Molly touch on specifically what that could mean or why that is the case and what we can do potentially to think about Facebook fundraising in a more organic as well as a growth perspective and how that should be applied to your organization moving forward. Okay, cool. We've got a lot of good results here. I'm going to pause this because we have a lot to go, but 87% of the people that voted so far have said, yes, we have giving tools turned on. That is great. 13% no, but hey, there's a lot of information. It's going to be great for you. In progress, no one, and they've got turned off. Thankfully, no one has reported that yet. It's been a going trend for, oh goodness, the last 6 to 8 months rolling. Okay, I'm going to switch next things over to what to expect for today. Again, I like to run a tight ship. We got 57 minutes. We're going to do this all. I promise you. Reminder, today's session is on demand. Once we conclude here, you can pick that up on LinkedIn automatically, and we'll get that uploaded to our website within the next couple of days, typically. You can also find it on YouTube right away, as well as Facebook. So we're streaming all over the place. Today, we're going to try and take things a little bit methodological path here in terms of starting where you want to start. Facebook Tools Giving 101, how to turn that on. Go into what is Nonprofit Manager, the basically your home base for the tool sets that Facebook gives you when you're approved for giving tools. We'll go into Facebook Messenger, where, why, and how to apply Messenger within the fundraising scope of Facebook. We'll touch very lightly and high level on challenges. And I know Molly's got some great stuff lined up to talk about in terms of how to think about and approach challenges. And then we'll roll into finally closing things out with challenges and Messenger benchmarks through the first half of this year. We'll also have Q&A at the very end if we got time. Also, a lot of you have already seen that you're jumping into the comments. By all means, use this as we go. I'll do my best to infrequently take breaks, check out and see what's going on in the comments. If we see something that looks good and looks in time with what we're talking about, I'll pull that in. We'll discuss that in live. Otherwise, we'll park that and save it for the end. I also have Sydney on the other side helping me out with all of the logistics of running this. So if you hear me say, "Hey, Sydney, can you do this?" That's who I'm talking to. I promise you, I'm not talking to someone imaginary. Okay, enough of that. Let's get Molly and Colin at it in here. I've done enough talking. And for y'all, again, my name's Adam, but Molly, give us an introduction. You're no stranger to these events that we've been doing over the last year or so. And Colin, same with you. Give a refresher for those who are brand new. Molly first, what do you do here at Good United? And let's say, what are you most excited about outlining today through the course of our time together?
Hi, everyone. My name is Molly Gilroy. I have been at Good United for almost 3 years now. Previously focused on the optimization team. So my new role as a growth manager is still focused on messenger optimization, but now more so about acquiring new subscribers so you can communicate at scale. So doing the same thing here, but I'm so excited for the opportunity to talk to you all. I think that we often overlook a lot of the kind of basic things that Facebook offers now. It also is ever changing. So it's important to get a refresher every now and then.
Perfect. Thanks so much. And Kim gave you a shout out, Molly. You rock. And I think Colin and I know that. Colin, give us a quick heads up. How long you been at Good United? What you do here, and then what you're most excited about covering today.
Yeah. So my role, I'm the counterpart with Molly Gilroy. I've been here now for about 3 years. Fun fact: Molly and I came in about a month and a half, split apart. Kind of been there and seen everything. I think from my end, just to add on. Last year, I spent a little bit of time working with Meta's team directly to figure out how, Messenger fits into the giving tool scene and what else they can do to really expand that landscape and make it a better platform for you all. So a lot of really, really exciting information we're going to dive into today and get ready to nerd out with Molly and I.
Perfect. Thanks so much, Colin. And you both have helped me so tremendously over the last year. You've seen them in a lot of our webinars. Originally, I got you wrangled into what we did is back in October, the Facebook Challenge breakdown, where we took a look at 3 distinct different challenges and recommended how to improve that. From what I hear, we're due to bring that back. So we may bring that shortly. I mean, dragging y'all along with me. Okay, before we get going, there's one basic thing that I want to outline, and Colin and Molly, keep me honest on this one, but it's the idea of social subscribers. And this is really going to be an important building block for everything we talk about here and in future.
I think Adam's internet may have cut out. So we can just jump in here. Bear with us. I think the internet's a little wild sometimes in Charleston. So again, we just want to kind of reframe what is a social subscriber. So an individual that gives to a nonprofit and also gives permission to connect in Messenger. So this is important because not only are there ability and tools for you to donate on the main page, start a birthday fundraiser, start a general fundraiser, or even a virtual challenge, like we're going to get into later today. You also have the ability to communicate one-on-one in Messenger with a nonprofit organization. Colin, is there anything else you want to add there?
Yeah, absolutely. So just hitting on that a little bit more, when we say subscriber, we are talking about getting people into conversational messaging platform. So like Molly had mentioned, getting them into an area where you all can reach out to them. One of the areas that we know a lot of nonprofits struggle with is understanding how to do that effectively and where to do it. And so when we talk about subscriber, just ground ourselves in the fact that we're trying to get people simply into a place where we can reach out and then ultimately, better cultivate and build that relationship with them.
Yeah, another thing to add too is that in the last year and a half, actually, Facebook has put a huge emphasis on Messenger in general. So not only for nonprofits, but also other B2C companies. They had an entire webinar that was pretty much based around tools and kind of hacks to be able to communicate one-to-one with supporters or with customers in Messenger. Colin, are there any other updates when you were working with Meta that stood out to you or were kind of groundbreaking in terms of how it allowed nonprofits to communicate with their supporters?
Yeah, absolutely. So this kind of jumps into the section Adam was talking about with Messenger one-on-one. One of the questions that Meta had last year was simply around the fact of um, where does Messenger, where these subscribers are, where does it fit into the fold of the giving tool scene? They recognize it's a great way to reach out to people, but they really want to understand and validate both quantitatively and qualitatively that it did provide value. One of the big updates that I'm sure everyone understands nowadays is more so around what they call default opt-in, which is monumental. I know Molly's shaking her head. But within that, what is really important to understand, if you look over to that right-hand side, is the concept of when people got Adam back. Awesome. When people come through and are fundraising for you or donating to a fundraiser, you can see over there on the right-hand side, one of the check boxes is get messages. Functionally, having that there is meant to be able to connect them into Messenger so that you can reach out. And why this is so monumental is previously, before October of last year, that box was unchecked. So when I say default opt-in, now that is an option automatically selected, which skyrockets subscribers.
Mm-hmm.
One of the important parts of that, obviously, is once you get people into the channel, you then own that relationship and have the ability to keep driving that forward without having to pay to reacquire them. So when we go back to talking about a social subscriber, this has really taken it to the next level and sort of unlocked a lot of different areas and capabilities for you all as the nonprofit to keep building that relationship.
Adam, welcome back.
It never fails. I go home to do this to get stable Wi-Fi, and here we are with power outages. Awesome. Thanks so much. I'm assuming y'all covered what I was going to cover. Thank you. Here's to hoping that's the last bit of that. Okay, y'all. Let's keep things moving on. And then it's a good point too. And Colin and Molly, you can help me because you are experts on this. Real quick, Amy is from Canada. Please point out any functionality discussed today is not available here. You all are experts. I got much more detailed view into Facebook fundraising within Canada and where there are limitations. From my understanding, let's just knock this out in here. My understanding, there's some limitations in terms of the transaction reports and be able to identify specific donors, similar to what we can do in the United States, where it's named and we have that. Due to the PayPal fund, the way things are distributed funds-wise. Is that correct, Molly and Colin? Is there anything else that is worth outlining here for Amy?
Yeah, so there's a slight difference in the reporting. So a transaction report is just essentially a report, a raw data report that Facebook allows you to export, and that just shows you how many donations you got for a period of time. There's a slight difference with the way the Canadian ones are structured versus the United States ones. But overall, it's not a limiter to like us working together or you all achieving your goals and tracking your fundraising progress. And one additional thing is we're going to go into kind of like fundraising tools. There's something called an API fundraiser, which essentially is our ability to spin up a Facebook fundraiser with all of the details already filled out. This makes it really easy for someone to create a fundraiser because they don't have to go to a landing page in Facebook, create their title, description, cover photo, etc. Right now, API fundraisers aren't available in Canada, but there's still a lot of other Facebook fundraising tools that we've seen work just as well or be very successful for them.
Cool. And thank you for that, Molly. And Amy, if there's any further questions, we're happy to take that off the air. You can always reach out to myself. Molly or Colin are always happy to help, as well as any part of the Good United team. All right. I'm going to keep cruising here. I'm keeping an eye on time. It's going to be tight, but I think we can do it. Facebook Giving Tools 101. You all should have seen a handful of emails providing some resources prior to us going live today that provided how to walk through and where and what you needed to do in order to be eligible, but then also apply and be approved for Facebook Giving Tools. If you didn't get this resource, let me know in the comments real quick. I'll do my best to get that out again as a follow-up this afternoon for y'all to access that again. But a couple things, right? 501c3 nonprofit for the United States. For that, you're going through and choosing one of two payout methods. MetaPay, specifically for expedited payouts. They do it on, I believe, bi-weekly bi-weekly schedule there, as well as there's option for Network for Good too. And here's some of the more finer details. I'm not going to get into every single one of these lines. We'll be here forever. And Lisa, I see you. I'll get you that right after this. In terms of this ebook, I'll make sure to get everyone out. The long story short is there's a handful of things that you need to pay attention to. The process, takes maybe 15 to 20 minutes. Colin and Molly, if I'm not mistaken, I've gone through this too. It's a lot easier if you get everything pulled together before you start the process, so you don't have to go running around trying to find things. I know it's working with a local nonprofit too. They ran into some issues with their checking account. They just started a brand new nonprofit locally, and they hadn't switched that over. So Meadows given some fix this before we go forward too, right? This one, give me a shout out. I something to become the resident help point of contact for this, and I love it because I spend probably 3, 4, 5 nonprofits every week helping with this. This is what I get paid to do, a part of it, and I love it. So with that, if you do have any questions, and I see a lot of people saying, hey, get this over my way, you all got it. I'll get that out. Probably give me an hour or two after this is done, and we'll get that over. Molly, Colin, is there anything that we want to outline here? This is pretty straightforward. This gets you, once you apply, it takes about 2 to 3 weeks typically for the approval process. I've seen it happen as fast as 10 business days, some as lengthy as 3 to 4 weeks. Just depends, right? Something that we can't control at Good United, but we're here to help. And this really unlocks everything we're about to talk about. Is there anything that nonprofits should be thinking about when it comes to the application process before we scoot along into nonprofit manager?
I don't think so. I think you covered it, and I think the documentation will help them as well.
Okay, cool. And Taylor just asked, how can we make sure that giving tools are turned on? Typically, the fundraisers tab on your homepage, and we'll cover that a little bit later down the road, is the biggest and easiest way to pinpoint if they have been turned on. Donate button's a little bit more tricky because I believe you have to go in and actually turn that or set that up. Molly and Colin, correct me if I'm wrong on that one.
Yeah, that's correct. And then additionally, there is one thing that I know, Adam, not to spoil what you're going to go into, is a capability around something called Nonprofit Manager. Think about it as like your centralized location where you can see all of these tools. And so if you see that on your left-hand panel, you have Giving Tools on.
Sweet. Actually, that's a perfect segue, Colin. And let's just get right into it. And Crystal, good to see you show up too. I'll get you that out to you. Kelly, Taylor, a lot of people say, give me that. We'll send it to you. No problem. So Nonprofit Manager Essentials here. And this is kind of your home base. This is a free tool that comes along with the application of being approved with Giving Tools. And it really serves as kind of your first foray into fundraising on Facebook. There's a whole host of things. The home tab kind of acts as your home base, if you will. And the next couple of slides will actually walk us through that left-hand pane. And for those that are wondering, I'll get a link to this deck out with that ebook, as well as how to apply after this. So you can have this as a reference point. You also may have seen some of the linked reference material from Meta specifically in previous emails. If you haven't get that, I'll add that to the list of things to send out this afternoon. But really, as we go through these slides, the home, the supporters tab is probably where I typically have gone first and made a stop off. I want to know who is supporting my nonprofit. In this case, I would imagine similar to you. This is where you get to put names, you get to see actions, and you get to take actions. Colin and Molly, we'll go Molly first. From your point of view and what you've done work with nonprofits, what is the value to being able to put a name to what is going on in support of missions and nonprofits?
I mean, it's huge. So if you think about a lot of organizations that have robust or even normal like page following volume, even though you have a lot of page followers, it's really difficult to put a name to them. And it's even more difficult to kind of reach back out to them. So even though they're connecting with you on social, there's still kind of like that wall that you want to know more about them. These people have given in either by making a donation or starting a fundraiser. So these are your most valuable supporters on social. And they're already connected with you, which is amazing. So think of this as like a glossary of your most high value social supporters with information about how they gave, so that if you reach back out to them, either in channel or in another channel, you have some context to like start that conversation and deepen that relationship with them.
Perfect. And that's so great, Molly. And Colin, you're touching on some of the messenger aspect in just a few slides down the road. But for the ability to what Meta introduced with the ability to automate messages for supporters, how big of a difference has that been for, and I know you specifically worked with a lot of smaller nonprofits in the Meta test run last year, the ability to do this for those who don't have the staff, and really, I don't know anyone who has a staff that can dedicate someone to sitting and manually thanking everyone. Like, what does this do and unlock for nonprofits of all sizes?
Yeah, so it's a monumental step forward. When we think about that staff time, we hear it across the board. Everyone has a ton of hats they're wearing at their nonprofit, and so leveraging some of these tools allow you to dip your foot into the water of reaching out to these people and developing the beginnings of the relationship. I say beginnings because a lot of these are going to be automated. Therefore, the personalization off the get-go is not quite there yet. There are opportunities to be able to do that and create strategies around that because that is important. But the most important part about this is that this suite of tools that you'll see over there to the right, alongside those automated messages, allow for you to get your foot in the water. And then, more importantly than anything, make sure that you're reaching out to these folks that are taking action for your mission. It's important, even if it is just a blanketed thank you message. You need to get in front of that, not only to make them feel heard and appreciated, but again, if you're thanking them, it's also going to show on their fundraiser page, which is forward facing to that social community. So it looks great when you all are leveraging these tools. And again, it's really just the beginning, but I encourage everyone to get in there and start to test and use them.
Perfect. And thanks so much for that, Colin. And then as we're cruising through, the Insights tab too is another big thing here. The ability to provide some Molly, correct me if I'm wrong, basic reporting here around what nonprofits are doing on a week-to-week, month-to-month, quarter-to-year-over process. But it's giving you some insight. Is that real time, Molly, or is that delayed? And what does that look like in terms of the ability to go in depth, if at all?
Yeah, so this reporting is a good kind of like macro level view. So I like to use this to see like trends. So you can filter by birthday fundraising, by general fundraising, by API fundraisers, like I mentioned before, and kind of just see over time, over the last year over year, over the last month over month, like how much your organic or paid fundraisers are fluctuating over time. Again, though, in this view, you can also scroll up and then you can export a report, which is much more granular. So I think one of the questions in the comments was about campaign IDs associated with fundraisers. In that transaction report, you'll be able to see the campaign ID associated to the first and last name of the campaign owner.
Cool. And I believe that question around campaign ID was directly from, this is from Deanna, around Instagram fundraisers. That's well beyond my expertise right now. My high level knowledge is that they're working on bringing some more functionality and some ease of reporting when it comes to the limited, basically the set of what you can do on Instagram. From your perspective, Molly, what you know, is that correct to assume?
Yeah, I've noticed that they're starting to kind of integrate Instagram revenue, obviously, because that's coming in and they're trying to prioritize that. We're still seeing a lot of that revenue, majority, 98%, coming from Facebook. However, I'm starting to see fundraiser type as Instagram or Instagram donation come up in those transaction reports. So it's definitely in there and it's going to be improved over time. So just keep checking the reports and Facebook, I'm sure, is going to improve them.
Perfect. Thanks so much for that, Molly. And then fundraising campaigns tab it's meant to access fundraiser and payment activity. This is a great place to drop in to understand and manage all your fundraising operations. Colin, from your point of view, what's the value here? What is the one thing that if I'm a nonprofit that is signing up or just brand new to Giving Tools, why am I going to this tab?
Yeah. So a lot of our nonprofits utilize this tab to be able to track, as Adam said, their campaigns that they're running. And so some of those campaigns, if you look in the tool section, are around fundraising challenges that could be activity based, or it could also be tied to just literally fundraising collectively with a group. And then many nonprofits like to stand up what we call hosted fundraisers. So these are, if I am, let's say, a children's-based organization in Florida, and we have a tentpole moment going around for awareness and giving education during the month of March. Completely making this up. You can spin up a campaign to be able to go out and allow people to donate to that hosted fundraiser. And even put some paid ad efforts, right? So if you have an in-house team and want to put some advertising dollars behind it, you can drive towards that. And again, very nice high macro level view of seeing what active campaigns you have out there in the market, and really think about how to use these creatively. There's a lot of different reasons or campaign moments that you would want to be able to do that. And we've seen pretty much everything across the board, but it is helpful to be able to understand from not only your perspective if you're launching this campaign, but the rest of your team's perspective, what is out there.
And thanks for that always thorough and perfect explanation, Colin. And Kim says, hey, we actually use this every day. And it's a great habit to get into. I know that you can't track results if you don't know what's going on a granular basis. So Kim, kudos to you. Sweet. I'm going to keep things moving. And Debbie on LinkedIn, I've got your question starred. We're going to save that and come back around your way at the very end here, if you're okay with that. Colin, I've got us teed up here for Facebook Messenger 101. And I know there's a lot of things going on within Messenger, chief of which is, I know I always get feedback, is that, wait, Messenger's just a big fancy bot, which I've seen a lot now in my year at Good United, as well as using Facebook professionally for how long? 10, 20 years? Geez. And I could say it's anything but a bot, especially if you take into the understanding of it's how you apply the technology and use it to augment human interaction between two humans, right? And that's really where Facebook Messenger starts to shine. Before I get on my tangent about technology and how it should be helping us be more human, some of the default tools that are available within Facebook Messenger once giving tools are turned on. It gives you the ability to reach out to new recurring donors, new supporters, and fundraisers, but it does have limitations for ongoing outreach. Colin, there is thankfully some automation here to help nonprofits of all sizes, but there's also those limitations here. Can you walk us through at a kind of a high level what that exactly means, what we can do, why it's viable, and then where it kind of stops and where there's other tools that need to be pick up the slack if you want to build that ongoing relationship?
Yeah, absolutely. So the name of the game for every single nonprofit is going to be relationship building. There should be no expectation of having a supporter come in and take another action in the future if you're not putting in the time and the thoughtful due diligence to build that relationship. And so, like I had mentioned a couple minutes ago, if you look there down to the middle rightish section with those little coins dropping in, those are what are called automatic replies. So when someone creates a fundraiser or donates, 5 minutes after they do that action, you can send them a nice little thank you in Messenger, which again kicks off that conversation and the ability to start reaching out to them. But the natural question that everyone has is, okay, that's great. It's a cool piece of functionality, but that doesn't really adjust for the overall strategy and pain of how do I build this lifetime relationship that translates to value. And so again, this is one of those areas where it's a great first step of getting in there. But the question that we all need to be thinking about is how do we put ourselves into the seat of the supporter and give them that journey and that relationship that they crave and desire, as evidenced by the fact that they are literally giving you permission to reach out to them in Messenger.
Sweet. And that's a great point into the conversational messaging bit. And again, not a bot. This is very much technology that is fueled maybe, we'll say 70% automation, but the last 30% is really the human intuition, the understanding of crafting messages and providing supporters, your supporters, with the ability to give and support your nonprofit in the way that they see best. You kind of see that outlined in that example in this screenshot below. Count me in, maybe next time, no thanks. It's almost as valuable, Colin. And I know you and I have talked about this a lot, to understand when people are ready to give, but also give them the ability to decide, hey, if a nonprofit has done a challenge over challenge over challenge every, once a month for 6 months straight, I'm going to be tapped. I'm going to be less likely to come back and support. So it's more important for me to be identify as a supporter. Hey, not this time, I'm going to sit this one out, or I want to help contribute, maybe not in a monetary manner, but more in a support or a aspect, right? Colin, talk me through conversational messaging, which has become you and Molly's expertise, especially with the way Good United is heading with our conversational messaging through Messenger. What are some of the key things that, if you're brand new to this idea and concept, that you want nonprofits and everyone here, the professionals for nonprofits, to walk away with understanding as a building block for this going forward?
Yeah, great question. So one of the beautiful parts about conversational messaging, and direct messaging people, is that you have the ability to give people paths, right? It's important that we allow people to tell us when opportunities are right for them and when they're not, or if there's no interest at all. There's implicit meaning behind that interaction and things that you can glean from that, which is uniquely had in conversational messaging platforms. It's not a broadcast, so I don't just target 10,000 people and say, hey, everyone do this thing and go directly into it. No, that's not right. The way we have to think about this, and I know you all as the nonprofit know better than anybody, is we need to give people the opportunity to tell us how they see themselves staying involved and allow for them to drive that relationship. If I force everything down on Molly as it meets my goals as the nonprofit, chances are it's not going to end up exactly how you want it to be. And so this really helps you break that mold and make sure that you're giving people the opportunity to dictate what that looks like, while still obviously trying to, meet those goals. And then more importantly, this example over here to the right, you can see an opportunity where a Facebook challenge came up, and one of the subscribers we have in here received a message like this. If they said maybe next time, that is a wonderful indicator of a cohort of subscribers that we can then give that opportunity for a future action. And so, outside of, that example, there's a ton of value to be had, and insights and data that you can get from conversational messaging that would be extremely difficult from many legacy channels.
That's a great call out. And Colin, this has become all of our favorite slides at Good United, but it really outlines one major thing. It's that this idea of a subscriber, a social subscriber, or really anyone who's opted in to receive messages from nonprofits directly, they are not, I like to say, turn and burn. Like nonprofits should not be looking at this as an opportunity to go to the well over and over and over. It's going to dry up real quick. Rather similar to major donors, and I believe the stat I've seen over and over is you recommended to reach out and have touch points of 5 to 7 times, give or take, non-monetary asks, to build relationships, to build a underlying layer of relationship and trust before you start to make those monetary asks. This flywheel and how we kind of look at the world of fundraising on Facebook mimics that very closely, albeit probably honestly intentionally from our part. Talk me through this in less than probably 30 seconds, as we still got some good stuff to get through, Colin, what this actually means in terms of the supporter or subscriber lifecycle when you're looking at Facebook Messenger and fundraising on Facebook.
Yeah, so it is literally no different than any relationship building in normal life. So as I just mentioned, you have that opportunity through some of these tools to be able to start that point of engagement. But when we think about the long term of developing that relationship with these subscribers, there's way more to it, right? As Adam mentioned, we cannot always ask for them to do more. We need to take time to take a step back and understand you better. By doing that, not only does it build trust, but it gives us a better and higher likelihood for someone to come back and take that action that we want them to take. Again, it's all about tying in, building that relationship, and deserving the right for them to take it, rather than assuming that they should come back and do it.
That's perfect. And it looks like we got a quick question. I think it's worth asking here from Taylor. And Colin, this is probably going to be best for you. I can't reach out to most supporters directly apart from automations and the bulk message feature. When I click the 3 dots next to the supporter's name in the nonprofit manager, the message option is grayed out. Is this example of a limitation, or is there a workaround for this?
Yeah, really, really good question. So the way that works, and we've seen a couple little wonky bugs here and there, is that when you have that bulk message button available, the way that you get that to ungray out, if you will, is to go through and select the people that you intend to use that feature for and message out to, and then it usually populates. if you have issues that is not solved by following, that preliminary step before clicking it, as Adam said, feel free to reach out, and we've seen just about everything you possibly can, and we probably have an answer for it. So please reach out if that doesn't help.
And just to add like one more alternative, so this is meant to kind of automate the process of reaching out to your subscribers, but you can always go in your page inbox. So you have access to your page inbox as long as your messenger is turned on. It's not like the most easy way to do it, but you can definitely search someone's name and continue the conversation there if they're unavailable or unreachable via the automation.
Cool. There's my mute button. And all right, we're taking a 30-second break. I had to check my Gatorade because it wouldn't be a boot camp if I didn't get parsed here. Again, similar to what we did. And if you just joined us before we did our last one, go to menti.com or scan that QR code. The code for that is 33985833. I'm curious to see the adoption of Facebook Messenger and where it's at for y'all's nonprofits. And I've always gotten a wide range over the last year I've been here of varying results. And it's a critical part of how we communicate. And we'll talk through in the challenges section just how big that has become for really successful nonprofits like the Trevor Project, who we'll call up as an example and screenshots following up. And that's starting to increase over time as more and more people understand that, hey, there's more tools. Facebook continues to invest in these tool sets and continue to, we'll say, mature them down there, the software aspect. And it's becoming more and more accessible. I know the biggest update, and Colin and Molly, I believe, mentioned this while I had my power outage back in October, November of last year. They did a whole slew of updates that really show us where the focus of Facebook and Meta is going to be going forward, right? And that's Messenger. They see that as not some kind of fun middle ground, not quite as personal as text messages or SMS, not quite as like impersonal as a broadcast email, but this really is a unique channel that lets individuals and really nonprofits communicate in the channels where everyone seems to be spending their most time, almost 2 hours a day from the last reports that I saw on social media. So that's pretty crazy. Okay, we got some good results. Most people, it's a nice to have, or hey, email is just fine for us. That's totally cool too, right? We're doing our best, and every nonprofit's going to have what works best and unique for their subscribers and their segmentation of users, right? Cool. All right. Anything that I'm forgetting here, Colin, before we set sail into challenges, which I'm sure everyone is thinking long and hard about here?
No, you hit the nail on the head.
All right. That's what I like to hear. Okay, cool. Molly, I've got you tapped for this. Let me get this out of the way real quick. For those of you who are brand new to this idea of what in the world is a Facebook challenge, or officially called challenges on Facebook, this is not my inability to remember my password. So it's a challenge when I'm logging in on a new computer. This is actually a thing. And this came about and has been evolved into this really unique and quite influential growth event that nonprofits are harnessing to take the idea of a peer-to-peer, standard peer-to-peer fundraising event and just bring it digital. Granted, it's going to be a little bit different. You don't have that person-to-person interaction point. But as we'll cover through here, through things like the community groups that get launched associated with challenges, Facebook's done a really good job to try and bring about camaraderie, support, and interaction between those who, the nonprofits, but also the people who are supporting and starting fundraisers for these challenges. Molly, is there anything at a high level that I'm missing here before we bounce along to kind of the key parameters of what constitutes of a Facebook challenge?
One thing I just want to add is that when we began testing and running Facebook challenges back in COVID times, the goal was to kind of supplement that in-person revenue that was missing for a lot of nonprofits. But even then and now, the goal is not to replace in-person events. So challenges can be critical in strategies. We've seen organizations go back to in-person events and still use virtual challenges as a way to diversify their event calendar, or even make things more accessible for people that are not in the region where events are being held.
That's a great call out too. Additive, not a replacement. Yeah. And I think that's been a common mantra in our office and amongst a lot of our nonprofits that we support and work with as well. The key things at a high level, the key parameters, the duration of a challenge, how long are we going to do that? The challenge activity, which actually does play a big role in the success of a challenge. I can't stress that, because my idea is of, hey, let's go grab Air Jordan 1s and donate those. Probably wouldn't be as good of a hitting as, honestly, the walks, the mile walks. Molly, Colin, I don't know if we do power skipping. I don't know if that's a thing.
Not yet.
Great. Power walking's up next. But like, this actually has a science built into it. I know we use the 7 to 8 years of our experience to help inform nonprofits based on their size of subscribers, their potential reach, their segmentation of supporters, and all of that goes into that. So it's a big piece. What are the goals? A lot of nonprofits coming into this brand new, I think, just happy that they're introducing a new revenue stream and don't have the goals, which is great. But for those that are doing this year over year, it's how do we think about the organic, or the I guess the growth metrics around that, and the participation, things such as leads created, the amount of fundraisers or subscribers that are reactivated to support multiple times, right? And we'll touch on that, some of the benchmarks. Are there any more key parameters, Molly, that I'm missing here before we move on to that next slide?
No, I think the touch on activity and strategy is huge. We have an entire team that has the sole responsibility to figure that out. It's not one size fit all. Every organization is different. Their audience is completely different. So before we even launch our first challenge with an organization, we put an incredible amount of work into finding the right fit. And then after we run some, we still reevaluate and see like what is clicking, or what events might click more.
And that's a great point to bring up into this next piece, is the recruitment aspect. So I'm going from a timeline left to right. So first you start with, obviously, with the strategy, understanding what would potentially work for your nonprofit and their supporters, as well as attracting new supporters. Then it comes the step of, okay, how do we actually recruit people in? Two streams here, net new leads. So new people that have not supported your mission before. And typically that's done through Facebook ads and team fundraiser recruitment, right? And that's simply as Molly starts a fundraiser. She says, Adam, come along and support what I'm doing. I say, okay, cool. And then I say, hey, Colin, come do what I'm doing. And that kind of, I don't want to say viral effects. I think viral is a little bit over the top here, but that kind of networking effect is a huge key. And it's always free, which is great. But those ads piece, and you see an example of what Trevor Project is doing this month in June, right? You see how it mimics, and the feel of the branding. It's consistent. And as a brand guy, as a marketing guy, that makes me so happy. They put such an amount of effort with us to do this as a team. But you think the inline ads, those typically run, I think, about $5.70, give or take. I might be a few cents off when you're thinking about a cost per lead overall average through the first half of this year. Existing supporters, really, those are the people who are social subscribers on Facebook that you already have. It's astounding, $0, right? Now, granted, that's not taking into maybe the lifetime cost, but Colin, I saw you smiling because you brought this up to me. This is incredible that, and it makes sense that with tools maybe that we provide at Good United, I know specifically, you're able to go in and say, hey, we want to activate a segment of our existing social subscribers on Facebook. Make the simple ask. Again, in a conversational manner, because we don't want to pressure people. So you give the option to say, no, not right now. Or, hey, how else would you like to serve? The Colorectal Cancer Alliance case study is a great example of that. And if you didn't see that webinar a few weeks ago with Colin, and myself and Chelsea from CCA, or the Alliance, they did a phenomenal thing where not only did they raise unexpected money, they had all these stories of people who wanted to support in different ways, which was phenomenal. It was easy to get. And one of the coolest things that I've seen, Molly, from your point of view, is there really anything? There's a lot that goes on being just throwing up a cool picture and some copy, right? When you're helping nonprofits, what are the biggest 2 to 3 things, or if there's one big thing where you see nonprofits do this on their own and maybe with limited ad experience, see a really high cost per lead, or just honestly throw money in a pit?
Yeah, so the acquisition through ads is critical for success of challenges that we found. Oftentimes we see organizations create a hosted fundraiser and try to kind of create or replicate the challenge experience. But without that acquisition of new supporters and putting them through the funnel, it's very, very difficult to scale out performance. So you might see strong performance from a few supporters or fundraisers, but you really need that scale to actually see the performance drive results. But the other piece of Messenger is really critical after you've kind of invested time and equity into challenges or into Messenger in general. So think of like the marketing funnel as a net new lead is someone you're acquiring, but you have to kind of build the relationship with before they take another action. Meanwhile, there are people that are ready to take another action. So what we've found is that we can actually improve performance over time because we don't have to reacquire people that have already told us they want to do this again. And Messenger is a great tool to seamlessly and with as little friction as possible, remind them that there's a new event available and get them to come back.
That's a perfect segue into the next phase. So you get people saying, yes, let's go.
Yeah.
The challenge group. And this is another one of those maybe understated and I don't want to say underutilized. It's utilized perfectly, but people don't think about this at the front, especially if you're brand new to this idea of challenges. Molly, to be oversimplistic, perhaps, it's where your community that is supporting you through fundraisers or wants to be involved in a challenge go to congregate. Like simple as that. We've all been in Facebook groups. I'm in a ton of different ones for my various hobbies, which I won't list out here. But this is the place where you see people cheer each other on. This 52-mile pride race is a good example. I've seen a lot of great things for like To Write Love on Our Arms, who are running one as well, where it's people encouraging each other when they're having a hard day, when they're struggling or they have victories and overcoming certain things within their life that maybe aren't necessarily even related to challenge, just in general, positive, what you would see in a peer-to-peer event. Truly, it's phenomenal to see. Molly, I can't understate probably how much this means to not only nonprofits to run effectively, supporters and fundraisers to have a place to congregate, but then also you think about the amount of work that goes into making sure these run smoothly. And that's perhaps the biggest point that I want to leave people here with is what goes on to make sure that these groups run smoothly behind the scenes.
Groups are absolutely critical. So essentially in the funnel of a challenge, a group is kind of where we place people after they've signed up. So not only do we encourage user-generated content and engagement amongst all of the group members, but we want to also protect your brand and protect kind of what is going on in those groups. So we have a community management team that works tirelessly around the clock to kind of review those, make sure that there's nothing kind of like not brand safe being posted there, but also facilitate more conversation, post polls, give prompts, give calls to action for someone to do something. And it makes it really special. I think everyone at Good United has probably at least once a week just scrolled through Facebook groups for challenges that are live and just witnessed the amazing stories and how vulnerable and beautiful the sharing is in those communities. So it's phenomenal to see, and it's a critical piece of challenges in general.
I agree. And so much so that some of those quotes are on our walls in our office. Like they mean that much to us, just as much as it is to our nonprofit partners. Molly, the other piece of this too, and I took a quick poll in our Facebook group. And if you're not in that yet, we're getting that back up and running. It's been a couple years dormant around Facebook fundraising mastery. But I was asking a question, hey, within fundraisers, there's the idea of, hey, these are people that have said, yes, I want to support this challenge. I'm going to raise money on behalf of that and bring a team along with for the ride. In this case, pun intended. There's ideas of Facebook fundraiser creation, which is the act of actually hitting that button and saying, let's go. And then there's the conversion aspect, which is perhaps even more important than the creation, because conversion means you're no longer just sitting there. You've actually raised your first set of dollars, whether that be $1 or more, and then you're off and running too, right? That may be best saved for a future boot camp on that, because we can get crazy on that. But from this aspect, this is about as easy as it comes. You see a screenshot of someone supporting the 52-mile ride. She's well on her way to getting her goal. Molly, what do people need to know about this? It's as simple as, hey, this is a great leading indicator that all the work and the pre-work that went into this challenge is working. You think about the strategy behind the event, the community, and then also the continued encouragement. At this point, what is there to do that nonprofits can think about once it's created to continue to spur on these supporters to reach their goals?
So, like Colin mentioned, like the actual thanking on a fundraiser is awesome. So, a lot of fundraisers obviously want to be appreciated for starting a fundraiser and for raising funds for the cause. So, Facebook makes it really easy to just automatically post that thank you message. But additionally, Messenger and the group are huge in actually coaching those fundraisers. So, a big piece of the Messenger and group experience are that we are identifying fundraisers as they created their fundraisers and giving them coaching tips to raise more money. That could be the act of a self-donation as soon as we recognize they started a fundraiser, which is the easiest way for someone to build momentum in their fundraising on social because it pulls that fundraiser back up in the newsfeed. Another example would be inviting friends. And then another example on top of that would be if we recognize that they already hit their goal, which is amazing, we tell them, did you know you have the option to increase your goal or increase your duration of your fundraiser? So all of those things we're constantly optimizing towards is how can we improve the average raised, we call it, so the average value of that fundraiser.
Perfect. And thanks for that, Molly. Colin, I'm going to tag you in. You've been quiet for too long. We've kept you on the sidelines. Great question from Katie. What can nonprofits do to equip folks for success during a challenge? If we can keep this under 30 seconds, if that's possible, I'll start your timer now.
Yeah, it's a perfect segue off of what Molly had just mentioned. And really the idea of this is that we can't assume that everyone is an expert at fundraising. You know, Molly walks through how to be a successful fundraiser, inviting your friends, self-donating, but that is not necessarily understood all the time by people that may be starting their first fundraiser. And so giving them those tips and nudges really get them moving and going, and it translates to that challenge success. And if you think about how to get more visibility around it, like Molly had mentioned, every time someone takes one of those actions, in all likelihood, that's going back to the newsfeed. So now I'm tapping into my other 250, 300 friends. They'll see it, donate. And as long as you're able to keep people engaged, then you can expect more donations to come through and therefore revenue attributed to that challenge.
Perfect. And I got one more too before we get to the benchmark section and close things out. Again, from Katie, double dipping. Colin, I'm going to keep it right with you. What does the journey look like for the person joining a challenge? She's saying, I think I joined one myself, but there was no communication and didn't end up participating, which I would imagine is not an uncommon story.
Yeah. So within the actual journey itself, there's really two parts. Again, as Molly had mentioned, that group aspect, right? That is a journey with the collective group all together where you can share, comment, encourage each other. But then specifically with that one-on-one communication, that's where we want to leverage Messenger in order to do that. So if you think about the phases of a challenge, there's a pre-event period where you're generating those leads, bring them into the group. An active period where people are actually doing the activity, and then that post-event period where you're learning about them and their propensity to come back. And so generally it follows that cycle, right? All along the way, we want people to start that fundraiser. Here are some ways to be successful, and then tell us how we can get better, which allows for us to collectively grow and create better experiences for not only your supporters, but every nonprofit supporter. And so that's generally what it looks like, but really keeping that cohesion between Messenger and the group and driving people to interact is the key to doing that well.
Perfect. And thanks so much, Colin. And Katie, if you have any further questions on that, you know where to find all three of us. Feel free to reach out. Molly, I got one for you real quick before we move into the benchmarks. Does a nonprofit absolutely need to host, or I guess run ads for challenges to make them work?
We recommend it. There are definitely some organizations that I think have substantial followings or haven't done this before, that there's such an appetite from their audience that they would be very willing, I'm sure, to do it. But what we find is that if you do not run ads to kind of drive new leads or drive new supporters, then you can saturate your audience really, really quickly. Also, with advertising non-paid on Facebook or social media, Algorithms make it really hard to reach a lot of people without paying or boosting, for example. So of course, we always recommend people or organizations to organically promote challenges. I've seen some of them update their Facebook cover photo to promote a challenge that they're running for that month. And those are definitely phenomenal ways to organically boost participation. But for a longer period of time, we definitely recommend ad spend to just continue to drive that acquisition over time.
And for those that are thinking about wanting to dip their toes into challenges, Molly, is there a recommended amount that nonprofits should be thinking about going into a challenge prep run, which usually it runs 4 to 8 weeks before actual launching, in order to have good impact? Is that, what does that monetary value look like, or is there one? Is it really truly based on the size and the potential footprint of a brand?
It's definitely variable. I mean, we internally, we don't spend ad spend just to spend it. We notoriously kind of identify when things are going really well and give recommendations to add more ad spend if that's a possibility, or reduce ad spend. So it's based on kind of the audience size, if there's any exclusions that you have for any reason. But it is variable. And I think you learn over time, obviously, with trial and error, what that right kind of ad spend is before you see a diminished return.
Okay, perfect. And I think that gets us through most of the challenge-related questions. We got 5 minutes. I'm going to try and get us in here, maybe a few minutes over. But y'all should have seen, again, the 2023 M&R benchmarks. Sent that out to everyone who registered through a couple emails. If you haven't seen it yet, it is considered, Molly and Colin, correct me if I'm wrong, kind of one of the go-to sources for general benchmarks across fundraising as a whole. This is not just Facebook, but this is email, this is text and SMS, this is fundraising peer-to-peer aspect too, of the digital world. A lot of great stuff in there, although it's very bleak, I would argue, at best, from this year's edition. You see that highlighted, the first line of red, 35% nosedive year over year in 2022 of reported fundraising across 200 and I believe 30-ish nonprofits that M&R polled from last year's run, right? Not a huge surprise. I think a lot of the information came around that only nonprofits saw the humanitarian aid aspect in March spiked really hard in direct correlation to that macro event in Ukraine, but then it also tail dived, right? And everything slowly came back online after midpoint. See some organic growth. I think what our team was seeing about 2 to 3% month over month, but overall 22 was not terribly kind. The average Facebook fundraiser generated $136, averaging 4 gifts, $35 a gift average. All of this data too is, we'll say, missing some context. There was no mention of how or this revenue was brought in. There was no mention of challenge interactivity. There's no challenge and mention of birthday fundraisers, which we haven't gotten into, but more of the organic fundraiser aspect. Colin and Molly, is there anything at large as we go into the stats from the first half of this year with GU specific organizations that struck out to you about the M&R report that is worth calling and needing some additional context around?
Yeah, I can add a little something here. So one of the areas that we talk about when we listen to nonprofits and we see this be a common theme is the concept of that year-over-year dip. One of the things that we know that is happening every single day is that nonprofits are turning these tools on. And so when you think about those people that were fundraising for you 2 years ago, today, these people now have more options, right? So Adam could have started a fundraiser for your nonprofit, but now he's got 8 other options to choose from. You're now competing for his time. So when we think about ways to strategically combat that, it's all through the power of your supporters and specifically your subscriber. How can you take the reins of that relationship and that conversation and drive that action to happen? And so that is, one of the areas that when you talk about a slight misrepresentation around sort of what we're seeing, that's kind of what I'm looking at.
Cool. And thank you for that context, Colin. Okay. We got a couple of minutes. I'm going to go through these not terribly fast, but not slow either. Again, this deck will be going out for y'all to consume. This is part of the drafted version of our benchmarks report that is scheduled to officially arrive shortly, in about 3 weeks. So y'all getting first access to this. And our team pulled this data as of yesterday too, right? So this is all fresh and good. So in 2023 so far, 104 challenges in total run, specifically from Good United's organizations that we partner with. Facebook Messenger engagement. Here's your open rates and your engagement, information, right? Open rate of 81% of messages sent are opened. 17% of those are clicked through, and 5% response rate. Now, response rate being very specifically those who have opened and clicked and started or activated a fundraiser on behalf of nonprofits. In comparison and in contrast, the email and even the SMS aspects aren't even close. Oftentimes, I think 200 to 300% on the response rate over emails for Messenger. Pretty good, not bad for a tool that comes free, right? As you think about the Facebook challenge cost per lead, $5.70. You heard me mention that earlier for new leads driven through ads. $0 through Messenger. That makes sense because these are Messenger. You're going out and reaching out to people who are already flagged and subscribed to your Hear From You and your mission, right? Challenge fundraisers, 152,000 fundraisers created. 71,000 of those actually converted. So you see a 47% fundraiser conversion. And that conversion, again, is when a fundraiser is created and raises its first dollar. Colin and Molly, from your perspective, is that normal? And do you think that has anything to do with, well, I'll pause there. Where does this look like from what you've seen over the last couple of years? Then we'll go from there.
Colin, we can tag team it. You go first.
All right, I was going to jump in. Yeah, it is normal. So typically for most of our organizations, non-mission specific, it's usually about 50-50. So 50% of your people activate, raise their first dollar. But depending on the mission and the focus and how specific your mission is, if it is a very rare disease, it's going to vary widely on the spectrum. Those rare disease small organizations have far greater activated fundraisers because those people adamantly care about your mission and care so much to be able to go out and advocate and get that donation.
Perfect. Okay. Impact of challenge teams in Facebook Messenger. I know, Molly, we didn't touch on teams. I got to save some good stuff for potential future boot camps. This is the idea of, again, you heard me mention, Molly invited me, I invited Colin. That's a team, right? When teams are involved within Facebook Messenger specifically, we see a 30% fundraiser conversion. An average raise for those fundraisers is $252 and a 65% activity engagement rate. People are actually going, monitoring, logging their miles, logging however what activity they're tracking. It's not bad, right? Not bad at all. In terms of the impact of lifetime value of a social subscriber, and this is maybe the golden egg that everyone wants to get after, and we're still ourselves are learning how to effectively map this out and attribute this in a way that isn't a bunch of, honestly, smoke and mirrors. What we've seen specifically is that lifetime value of Messenger participants, people who are opted in, right, $250. Lifetime value of social subscribers, people who want to have that longer tail relationship and have identified that, you see that jump up to $470. The lifetime value of a social fundraiser subscriber, so this is double whammy. They've opted in and they're actively fundraising. You see that jumps up to more than double at $1,050. So you start to quantify and understand what the potential value of using Messenger, going all the way back to Colin's slides. You start to get a real monetary business case around at least starting to entertain the idea of using Messenger within your fundraising portfolios. Okay, that brings us tied into it. I knew we were going to cut it close on this one with a couple minutes over. If any of the stuff that we talked through, you want to take the next steps, Good Unite specifically, we're experts with the conversational messaging piece, using Facebook Messenger to drive results through things like challenges, through a lot of recent case studies that Molly and Colin have been working with our nonprofits specifically around how to use really attributable links created from the Good United platform to drive things like, hey, simply drop an engagement, like a like or a share of a post. The Stop Soldier Suicide case study we have out comes to mind right away. About the impact of a social community. I mean, as our co-founder Nick always says, you're spending time posting and building a community on Facebook already. So you're really almost being negligent, in his words, if you aren't thinking about how to functionally enable that community and raise funds for your mission. What we're doing here, if you scan that, that'll take you to our pricing page. I'd love to have a conversation with you. If what we talked about here, you want to take the next steps, understand how to use our technology, and Molly, Colin, our teams internally with our services to take the next step, scan that. You'll come right through me. What we're doing is through the end of June, if you are interested in moving forward with using our services, we're waiving the implementation and onboarding fee, which is $1,000. So by all means, scan away. You'll have to deal with me a little bit more. But with that, I'm wheeling this around into the final pieces here. I need more Gatorade in my life. I'm going back real quick too, as people need to drop off. That's fine. I do want to answer some questions specifically. Here's a good one from Debbie from LinkedIn. With the changes now on Facebook, how can you do fundraising that is not attached to a nonprofit? I haven't seen a way, but Molly and Colin, are you aware of any ways you can kind of have this free-floating fundraiser?
So I might need a little bit more context around the question, but essentially giving tools are only available on Facebook for nonprofits. So they want to be sure that nonprofits are registered and they're raising money for a legitimate cause. That being said, if you want to fundraise on a different page, you can always go ahead and create a fundraiser for an organization that you want to support. So I would recommend, if you want to create a fundraiser for a specific organization, you go to their page, you check and see if they have giving tools on. Hopefully they do. And if they don't, you should message them and tell them that they should, because you want to start a fundraiser for them.
Gotcha. I think there's some context around that too, Molly. It looks like they're not setting up a Facebook page, which is why she was curious, looking for other ideas. And, I think those are other tools I'm aware of that are outside of what we do specifically, that would be able to do that offline per se. And Classy comes to mind as one of those offline donation tools. However, that does come with a subscription fee and needs to be implemented by the school district in order for that to happen effectively. All right, and we got one last question here. There are some cases where I've gone and thanked a supporter, but Facebook doesn't realize and still says, say thanks, which confuses my other teammates. Is there a workaround to that? And I believe we might have already touched on that, Colin, but if you want to remind me, is there a quick workaround, or is this just how it functions?
Yeah, there is a little bug we've noticed with that before too, where it appears that you've thanked them and it doesn't always reflect within Nonprofit Manager. I would always say, if you're in doubt, direct yourself to their fundraising page, that URL that's attached to Nonprofit Manager, and then you can see that on their actual page if you're in doubt. Otherwise, I know that is something that the Meta team and our friends over there are aware of and are looking for some resolutions, but you are not the only one.
Cool. And thanks for clarifying that, Colin. And as I bring up a closing here, Chelsea, thanks for commenting on that one. Colin and Molly, you all are rock stars. Debbie, so much for joining in on LinkedIn. Hey, curious if this has been valuable for those that are still on here. We're thinking and playing with the idea of doing another boot camp sometime in July. Drop a vote real quick. We want to make sure that what we do continues to be valuable and beneficial. We've had almost 350 plus nonprofit professionals join us today, which is phenomenal. And we want to keep that going, but we only want to make sure we're doing it if it's value to you. So if you're still here, give it a quick scan of that QR code, or mentee.com. Again, it's 3398-5833. There are 4 options. Facebook challenges, which I tried to save some good stuff if we potentially do the challenges. Facebook Messenger as a topic. Integrated fundraising keeps on coming up too. And to clarify, for those who don't maybe unsure of what integrated fundraising is, all it is using a third-party tool similar to Classy and integrating that into Facebook fundraising, say a challenge, to have kind of this cumulated offline Facebook online fundraising tool that lets you see in cumulative, hey, we're raising X amount of money across multiple channels, right? There's a lot of people that have jobs specifically designed around that. and are interested in how to do that and add in, again, the additive piece, using Facebook to augment or increase a nonprofit's revenue numbers, and doing it any way they can, right? Colin, Molly, is there anything that subscriber growth too? When you think about how we talk about Messenger and the strategies around really ultimately growing your social footprint on Facebook, and then how to turn those social followers into subscribers, and ultimately subscribers into supporters and fundraisers for your mission. Around integrated fundraising, not necessarily surprised, but I am shocked that Facebook Challenges has 0 votes. Is there anything else that is worth highlighting around integrated fundraising specifically, if I didn't make anything a little bit too convoluted there?
No, I think you nailed it. Integrated fundraising is high on our list of priorities as well. So I have a feeling that would be a really great one to preview next time.
All right, I'll leave this open. I'm going to queue up some exit music here.
Yeah.
Maybe. There we go. All right, I'll leave that open for just a few more seconds. Colin, Molly, thank you again as always. It's always a treat, and thanks for covering, as I had power outages. Can't get away from them here in Charleston. I don't know what's going on with my life. Thank you all to joining us if you're still here, and for those watching on demand. There will be slides being going out from this. There will be resources that we talked about that will be going out in a follow-up email this afternoon. And look for the introduction of some of our next boot camp. We're going to try and hopefully shoot for July if you all see that as something worthwhile. Otherwise, I'm Adam. Thanks so much for hanging out with us for this hour and a few minutes. And I really appreciate the time. If you have any questions, you know where to find Molly, Colin, and I at any point. Thanks so much, y'all, and have a great one.